retired special constable was arrested and detained over a social media post warning about the threat of anti-Semitism in Britain. After the arrest, officers examined the 71-year-old's collection of books by authors like, brace yourself, Douglas Murray, along with copies of the, oh my God, shock, The Spectator, referring to them as containing very Brexity things. Not a crime, by the way. The incident took place in November 2023, which was just after, obviously, October 7 horrors in Israel. This week, Kent Police admitted the caution was a mistake and deleted it from the accused's record. Joining me now is former police officer Harry Miller. Harry, you must be absolutely, tearing your hair out of this. It's just, where are we going with this?
Yeah, I've no idea, because the police simply take no notice. We've had ruling after ruling, we've had guidance after guidance, we've had Home Secretaries repeatedly telling the police to get back in line, and they simply don't do it. Look, when I watched the video of the police entering that house yesterday, all that was missing was ski masks and the breaking of a window as they access through, through a rear window. By any other measure, this was burglary. The police should not have been in the house. They shouldn't have been going through the person's drawers. They shouldn't have been looking at his wife's shopping list. They shouldn't have been checking on his books. All of this is absolutely un-British. It's also entirely unlawful. And I very much fear that somebody, as a result of one of these unlawful police bullying actions, I believe that somebody's going to take their life. I believe that somebody's going to have a mental breakdown, because this is simply not funny. And the police seem to think that they can do it without any form of comeback at all. What they've said after this is, we'll treat it as a learning experience. Well, they don't learn. They don't treat it as a learning experience. They've never done so. They simply stubbornly refuse to change their ways. They've become the thought police. They've become the bookshelf police. It can only be a matter of time before we find ourselves with a house that is surrounded, and through the loud hailer comes the words, throw out your Douglas Murray books and then step out with your hands up. It can only be a matter of time, because this is the way that policing is going. And it's been going this way for a long time, and nobody seems to know where the handbrake is. Nobody seems to know how to stop it.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cybercriminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Harry, obviously, the ordinary coppers, the men and women are actually on the front line, on the beat. They are following orders. So they would be, taking orders from their superiors. So are we saying that it's the people at the top of the police force, or is this coming from politicians?
Well, it's quite interesting because Tim Smith, the Chief Constable of Kent, only last year he told politicians to keep out of policing. Well, you know, in many respects, that's a good thing. We don't want politicians in policing. But when the police behave like this, who's going to get involved and put a stop to it? That's the problem. It's coming from the College of Policing. It's coming from the Chief Constable. It's coming from police and crimes commissioners who haven't got any balls and refuse to sack their chief officers. And we simply allow it to happen because they know they're on the wrong side of the law, but they see themselves as being on the right side of history. And it's that which gives them the moral fortitude to carry on doing these absolutely corrupt home invasions, because this is what this is. This was a home invasion with violence. When you arrest somebody and put handcuffs on them, that is violence. If it was me, what I would be doing, I would be arresting those police officers for burglary because they entered as trespassers and they committed an assault on the homeowner. I would be arresting them. I would make sure every single one is thrown out of uniform and not allowed back in again, because it cannot keep going on and we can't keep saying sorry.
Brilliant. Harry, thank you very much. That's Harry Miller, who is a former police officer. And obviously incredibly strong opinions there, but Harry has been on the front line and has served. So that's his opinion. What do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Barry Gardner, I noticed you were nodding your head a lot there with what was being said.
Look, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, well, what about the superiors? Because it was some superintendent in Kent, in the police office, that said to those officers, you need to go out and do a trawl at this house. Who was that person? What we need to know is not, oh, are we sorry, did we get it wrong? What we need to know is what has now happened to that person who instructed that raid.
We do need to make that clear.
No, that's fine. By all means, apologise, you got it wrong. But why did you get it wrong? Has that superintendent been given a capability or a disciplinary hearing? Have they been retrained? Have they been told this is not the sort of thing that you should be wasting our officers' time doing, when actually there's a shopkeeper down the road who's had 200 quid's worth of goods nicked, and you're doing nothing about that?
But Barry, I mean, obviously, the people in charge of the police force, but this, I think personally, this comes from government as well. We're politicians of all persuasions have tiptoed round issues for fear of offending people. So maybe the police are trying to interpret what they are seeing their politicians do.
Well, if they are interpreting it, they're interpreting it wrongly. And I speak for both shades of politics, right and left here, because I don't think any politician is going to look at that and say, oh, well, those officers did the right thing. They didn't. Yeah, this happened under the Conservatives 2 years ago. Now we get the apology. But actually, it should never have happened. And it shouldn't go on happening. And that's why we need to know what actions Kent Police is taking to make sure it doesn't. And the fact that they've apologised is not enough. We need to know what action did you take against the superintendent who detailed those officers to go out and do that raid.
Charlie, what do you make of it? I mean, as I said, we kept saying they have apologised and the caution has been removed. But it shouldn't have happened in the first place, it's not least to someone in their 70s.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. Look, there's a lot in there. And first of all, it's about the individuals. So, you can't hide behind, an office or Kent Police Force, just as you shouldn't be hiding behind a government department if something goes wrong. Blame the department. Who in the department, who specifically is authorising X, Y, Z, I think is the first point. And what Harry was saying, I mean, incredibly passionate interview there about sort of going after the police officers. But I think to your point, Dawn, those police officers on the ground were instructed to obviously go in and carry out their duties. The question I have is, at what point can an officer who's on the ground, the actual boots on the ground, that isn't back office or superintendent high above, actually say, hold on, folks, you're sending us into a pensioner's property.
Actually, yeah.
Do we not think that this is a little bit excessive, all six of us getting in the van, assuming it was a van to turn up, or 2 police cars, 2 patrol cars? At what point can an officer on the ground say, I think this might be a bit far, Gov, or something like that?
I don't think they can. I think they'd be facing disciplinary procedures themselves. So
there's a question around whether officers should, if they feel that actually something is excessive, or the instructions that they're getting from the top, because to Harry's third point, which I think is the right one, too many police forces, I think, want to be on the right side of history rather than on the right side of the law. And I think there has been, when you're in quite an archaic, I think, probably organisation like the police, battling against modern-day technology like social media and AI and crime and all the, people reporting maybe hate speech or reporting these non-hate crime incidents or whatever. The police don't sometimes know or aren't agile enough to, I think, determine what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. So I think they can get the cover from the Home Secretary, they can get cover, they should be getting cover from police and crime commissioners, who I think are far too often absent. But, the responsibility has to still be about common sense to say, no, we're not going into that 71-year-old property because of a tweet. Thank you very much. There is this shop down the road that needs
the right
patrol.
side of history is not the thought police.
Yes.
Every country around the world that has instituted those sorts of thought police regimes where, you can get picked up for what you're thinking, is absolutely the wrong side of history.
Yes.
And if the police think it's the right side and they get ever more centralised control over what people are thinking, that's a serious problem.
Just want to read this message out. Please do keep your messages coming in. This is from KK, talking about this story. KK says they wouldn't do it to an Asian family. They only do it to white people. And there are allegations of two-tier policing, which lots of people think is happening in this country. What would you say to that, Barry?
Look, I think there are many occasions where we've seen the police use undue force going into the households of Asian or black families. They're so numerous. I just don't think that allegation holds up. I think the police... I think the
implication is that was maybe then, but times have changed so much, and to sort of try and balance out the awful behaviour of the past, politicians have gone too far in encouraging this.
The point is, the police can get it wrong no matter what colour the victim is. And we've seen far too many occasions where they do. OK,
just very quickly, Charlie, two-tier policing?
Well, I think I think that's perfectly understandable. I think there is that in this country because politicians can get it wrong as well. And when you sort of say, for example, that there is far-right movements, when actually reports have suggested, particularly in Southport, I'm referring to when actually it wasn't a far-right movement, where you saw police forces maybe deal with perhaps people that did appear to be white and, off the far right, as described, versus in Birmingham, where Asian families were asked, or communities were asked, just drop your weapons here and, you can go about your protest. That does smack in the face of two-tier policing. So I can understand the sentiment, but I'm sure the reality and the statistics might prove otherwise.
Okay. Right, well, let me know what you think. It is an important story. Lots of you are getting in touch. I will read as many out as I can at gbnews.com/yoursay. Now, meanwhile, we have to give the right reply. A Kent police spokesman says the force had concluded that the caution against the accused was not appropriate in the circumstances and should not have been issued. While a Home Office spokesman said this incident occurred under the previous government, the Home Secretary has made clear that she believes all police forces should be focused on the central priorities of the government's Safer Streets mission, including rebuilding neighbourhood policing, reducing antisocial behaviour and making progress towards the unprecedented ambition to halve knife crime and violence against women and girls within a decade.